The year is 2018. Two American astronauts arrive on the moon with another expedition. As soon as they manage to land on the surface, they are stopped by people with swastikas. These are the Nazis who managed to escape in 1945 after losing the Second World War. They landed on the moon and now live here, glorifying their ideology. The latest developments in the field of anti-gravity and jet engines helped them to settle down. Later, the fascists mastered the extraction of helium-3, an inexhaustible source of energy. Nazism now rules everywhere on the moon. What a huge building in the shape of a swastika is worth, and similar symbols are everywhere here. It is worth saying that the expedition to the moon is part of the US president's election campaign. Even the ship on which the astronauts arrived is plastered with posters in support of one of the candidates, or rather, the candidate. Perhaps it's time to get acquainted with our main characters. This is Renata Richter, a beautiful blonde. A Dinka who teaches little Aryans. The girl is going to marry Klaus Adler, an officer who is actively aiming for the Führer's place. And, in my opinion, everyone is aware of a possible setup, except the boss himself. Klaus is plotting behind the back of the boss, who, by the way, is a little stupid. And, apparently, that is why it does not stop such sabotage. The Führer of the lunar base is called Wolfgang Korsfleisch. One of the most comical moments is when his subordinates greet him with Heil Hitler, at which he gets angry and shouts, repeating over and over again that he is not Adolf. Klaus does it on purpose. One of the main characters is also James Washington, an American black astronaut who survived the Nazi attack on their ship. The story of his participation in the expedition is quite absurd because now in America, a woman president is preparing for re-election for a second term and needs to be appeased. She wants to send a dark-skinned astronaut into space. There's another tough man at the Nazi base, Dr. Richter. Crazy inventor. As you can guess from the last name, this is Renata's dad. Both the Führer and Klaus listen to him. Although it is possible that only in the absence of another inventor, a dark-skinned astronaut, even if he is just a model for show, has a hard time in the hands of the fascists. They interrogate him, try to brainwash him with Nazi speeches from huge speakers, and even want to drill his head for research. Renata herself shows an unequivocal interest in the stray guest. Basically, almost no one in the Nazi camp has seen a black guy live, so they want to know how he thinks and functions. But the doctor is forbidden to experiment. Instead, Washington is injected with a substance called bleach. A wonderful blonde man with a white face. The Nazis are taking away American smartphones. At first, Dr. Richter does not believe that this is such a computer. He shows his the size of an entire room. But then Doc admits that this invention is brilliant. The higher ranks are going to look at the miracle, but suddenly, much to the doctor's regret, this thing discharges. Klaus immediately offers to fly to Earth to get more of these computers. They will be needed to activate the most powerful weapon, Death of the Gods, which can destroy all living things. At least, this is how the officer explains his need to fly to the Führer. In fact, Adler wants to overthrow Wolfgang and even take over the Earth on his own. Klaus is going to fly, takes with him a small team, which also includes a modernized Washington. However, he does not know about his transformation yet. He will understand this only when he starts messing with dark-skinned guys. Renata Richter is not supposed to fly to Earth, but the girl sneaks aboard a strange flying thing with a swastika. Let's call it a flying saucer. Renata allegedly wants to match the title of the future Führer's wife and is therefore obliged to accompany him. But who knows, maybe he's just jealous. On Earth, we get acquainted with a political strategist and the head of the presidential election headquarters, Vivian Wagner. The Nazis capture her immediately to get a meeting with the president. Almost at first sight, Vivian feels an incredible attraction to Klaus. Yes, it's strange, they were divided into pairs. Renata is with the American, and Adler is with Vivian. No one seriously believes that some guys in Nazi costumes want to take over the planet. They are laughed at and praised for their very realistic images. Enterprising Vivian immediately decides to build an election campaign, exploiting the image of the Nazis, and generally create the same cult in the United States. By the way, they immediately forget about Washington. Nazi rhetoric is bearing fruit, and the president's popularity is growing. But even Renata does not suspect that Adler wants to seize power over the Earth. and destroy both the Führer and the US president combined. 3 months pass, and Renata was disappointed in Klaus. She unexpectedly meets Washington on the street, who is protesting against the Nazi regime. At the same time, Wolfgang apparently suspected something was wrong and personally arrives on Earth. He finds Klaus with Vivian when the officer tells her about his insidious plan. The couple kills the Führer, and Klaus assigns this title to himself. He steals Vivian's tablet and flees to a spaceship to send the computer to the moon. Washington finally convinces Renata that Adler is seeking power in the entire universe, and chaos will soon come. The Nazis are now afraid that the Earthlings will fight back and pull up their troops. Alien saucers are starting to bomb our planet. The president is delighted because, according to her, the one who started the war is always re-elected. The US Air Force, with tangible superiority, repulses the Nazis. The unmeeting is shown here very comically, as if the USA can do anything. In general, the president suggests using their secret weapon, the George W. Bush ship. He allegedly violates all the treaties between the countries, but the situation is critical. We have to decide who can lead it. And they choose Vivian in the end. Who else really? She also needs to take revenge on her former lover. The percentage of absurdity of what is happening is growing rapidly. Unexpectedly, it turns out that all countries except Finland have such secret ships. And they come to the aid of the Americans. The US president is furious. Is it possible to break the rules? Need someone else. Thanks to technology, Earthlings smash alien plates. But meanwhile, Adler gets to the death of the gods and tries to activate the weapon using Vivian's tablet. Renata and Washington intend to stop him. Vivian had almost reached the moon. She's going to bomb everything, and first of all, the grief of her lover. Adler activates a powerful weapon and tries to direct it towards the Earth. He partially destroys the moon to get into the right line of fire. But Washington snatches the tablet from him and deactivates the leadership system. Renata gets into a fight with her ex-boyfriend. Adler is going to shoot the woman, but she talks his teeth, tricks him to the bare wires in the chandelier, and shouts Seagull. Of course, Klaus raises his hand and gets a powerful electric shock. The girl finishes him off with her heel, which eventually gets stuck in his forehead. Washington and Renat escape from the ship before it crashes into the moon. Remember, we said that the Nazis learned how to extract helium-3. So, when the battle is successfully won, the Americans appropriate these deposits for themselves. Other UN-members start screaming. The meeting turns into a circus. On a global scale, all this is escalating into a future war. Meanwhile, at the lunar base, Renata and Washington come to the training hall. The guy returns to his original state because he's injecting himself with something like an antidote. If you can call it that. Enjoy, the couple rushes to kiss. The public on the moon is shocked that their representative is kissing a black man. After all, these people have never seen anything but Nazism in their lives. Renata, however, is not going to limit herself to one kiss. I hope that the lives of these guys will change. Well, here's a movie like that. If you didn't have time to be pretty stunned during my story, I will inform you that there is still a second part. But for some reason there was no premiere in Russia. But it's worth cooling down your hate machine guns a little if you think this movie is complete nonsense. Most likely it is, but this is an idea, not an accident. The only thing that bothered me a little bit was the overplaying of the actors. Although maybe this is how it is intended, and everything is in its place here. And that's all I have for today.